All right, so Psalm 101, verses 3 and 4, and this is what it says, I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. I hate the work of them that turn aside. It shall not cleave to me. A froward heart shall depart from me. I will not know a wicked person. Keep these in mind. Let's move forward now to, or move back actually, to Job 31 and verse 1. Move back. And also keep your finger in Proverbs 4 and verse 23. We're going to be flipping around here. And also keep a finger in 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 18. But Job 31 and verse 1, I have made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon a maid? I made a covenant with mine eyes, right? Those are Psalms 101 verse 3 says, I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. And 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 18, I will read it. Flee fornication. Flee fornication. And it continues to say, every sin that a man doeth is without the body, but he that committeth fornication sinneth against his own body. Flee fornication. And lastly, Proverbs 4 and verse 23, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. And there's a connection here in light of what I'm going to bring forth here tonight. And we're continuing this really what it is an expose of the Logos Bible software. And this particular expose here hit me hard because it absolutely just stunned me. I've not seen it, praise the Lord, in any of my searches. I have a library on Logos that was carried over from the word search, and there's a couple of extra things I did get on that, but I just use it for those commentaries, and basically that's it. I don't really use it as a study platform or where I'm totally integrated or immersed in it. And thank God that the Lord's protected me from that. And I've entitled this Logos Bible Software Selling Pornography. Yeah, I know, jaw-dropping, absolutely. And a lot of this stuff is on their sister site, faithlife.com, where they sell literature on that. And I don't have anything on that. And thank God. And of course, all of this is basically based on that little booklet that David Cloud has a download. You can download it off David Cloud's website, Their Way of Life. It's not written by him. And this is what it says here. Logos was called out in early 2024 for having a number of pornographic titles available for purchase. And it's quite a significant number. And some of you may have this. You've migrated over, right, from your word search because of because the Logos purchased. They bought out word search. Now, while they did eventually remove more than 1,000 offending titles, they did not do it quickly, which caused some to wonder why they would drag their feet on something as important as this. You know why? There's obviously a market for it. That's concerning for me because it's everyone. You've got pastors of every stripe. Of course, you've got like every Protestant stripe as well, and some cults, so the Seventh-day Adventists and that. And if they're selling this kind of literature, you've got women, right? You got just regular just church members. I won't say laymen, but regular church members, just church members. All that they're using this stuff. It's the largest Bible software platform right now, and it's it's got a very extensive library in that. And again, I thank God that I've not seen any of these. Now again, when I go into Logos, I'm basically searching for stuff I already have. I already have my go-to sources, and I go to them first. But just to think that you could just type in the word and all this comes out. And I'll get to that. So I'm going to quote now, it's protestia.com that basically exposed all of this and did an expose of this. And they have a number of articles. And I'm going to quote a few of these articles for you here. And one of them is entitled Exclusive Logos Software Selling Hardcore Erotica Porn Alongside Devotionals and Bible Studies. I know, I had that look too. Right? This is what it says here. update, I guess, says here. It says, Logos announced the same day this article was published. This is about just over a year ago this article was published, by the way, that the offensive material on their platform was an error and that they were removing the offending content ASAP. Well, you know, with their algorithms and they have a whole AI platform and all that, I figure that they should have been able to catch this with their tech men. Absolutely. Why didn't they? So this post, it says here, contains links with graphic descriptions and language, which I will not be using, by the way. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Now, this is what it says. Logos Bible software is perhaps the most prominent and popular sermon prep and Bible software or study software. Released in 1992 by Faith Life Corporation, the digital library application contains over 100,000 titles and theological resources in over a dozen languages and has been endorsed by everyone from John MacArthur to Beth Moore. Well, there you go. Logos offers access to Christian classics, academic work, commentaries, encyclopedias, Bibles, devotionals, Greek and Hebrew lexicons, data sets, lectionaries, dictionaries, interlinears, and all other sorts. And so, I mean, they have a lot of good stuff on there as well. But the fact that you've got the leaven of this filth. Now, they have removed this stuff. I don't want to even do a search to find out if they removed everything. I just don't want to even do that. Right? Continues on. Aimed at colleges, seminaries, pastors, teachers, lay people. These items are offered through standalone purchases or through packaged bundles. In some cases, these bundles cost up to $2,100, $2,200. Books are also offered through Faith Life eBooks. And that's some of the material. This is where a lot of this material is on. Faith Life eBooks, which has over 100,000 titles and is named after their namesake, Faith Life Corporation, which owns several other companies in this field. Faith Life eBooks and Logos also sell hardcore erotica, as of this article. We have uncovered hundreds of books that Logos has sold or is currently selling that contain extended, graphic, and descriptive sex scenes, rivaling the most sordid and smuttiest of harlequins. I can't even read you some of these titles. I mean, they're using expletives. They're using obscene language. In fact, the articles had to blur out the covers of the books. And, Dr. Ellesmere, they have to migrate it over, right? Whether he used it that often or not is another thing, but still. You don't expect to go into a Bible software program and think, okay, now a lot of this was on the Faith Life, which is on the website, and I don't subscribe to that, thank God. But you don't expect that. You shouldn't expect that. And they didn't deal with it right away. They dug their heels in. All right, so it continues on here. A few examples include, while one-offs of these books can be purchased and added separately, the content can also be full text search via Logos 10, Gold or higher, without purchasing the books, giving any bored pastor quick access to this content where no one would think to look, and without ever having to pay for it. There is no content warning for this literature through the program, and it cannot be locked down or blocked by a firewall. Well, I want to give you something, because I didn't know all about this. I've said, Jacob, why don't you go into my library and all that? You can go on the online. If your computer's slow. So he does a search, and by chance something comes up that's just, and then you click on that, and it gives you a description. I'm going to get into that, by the way. And then you can click more, and it gives you more of a description, and more of a description. That's how it works. That's sick. Right? So there is no warning for this literature through the program, and it cannot be locked down or blocked by a firewall. So why is Logos selling it? And now again, they've taken it down because of these exposés. There's a lot of emails, a lot of complaints went forth, and they have about 10 articles on their website exposing this. There's a back and forth. Continues on here. According to Logos distribution philosophy, Logos is not a church, charity, ministry, or nonprofit, but a technology company and bookstore that serves churches, pastors, academics, and laity. Well, if that's the case, look at your market. Why would you sell that stuff? Why would you allow it to pass through the filter? See, it's all about the money. Someone's buying it, right? Someone's paying money for these books online. While their guidelines insist they don't sell media that contains pornography, they clearly do, with nearly 750 titles containing explicit content cataloged. Now, this is on their website. It says here, content guidelines. I'm going to have to kind of do this here so I can read it. It says, the Logos Bible study app started with the King James Bible and a few other titles, including Strong's Concordance. As of this writing, we offer more than 150,000 titles in our bookstore across more than a dozen languages, reflecting the span of our customers' interests, views, and locations. Interests, views, wow. Similar to theological libraries around the world, we offer resources from a variety of historical, cultural, ethnic, and racial backgrounds and disciplines that reflect breadth and diversity of thought, fostering critical thinking and engagement on many topics. Generally speaking, the titles we offer on the Logos platform are deemed relevant or helpful to our users, though we make exclusions for books that meet these criteria. And it says here, these exclusions are erotica or graphic language. Well, no, something slipped through. We don't sell content that we determine promotes the abuse or sexual exploitation of children, contains pornography, glorifies rape or pedophilia, or other materials we deem inappropriate or offensive. Incitements to violence, and it goes on there, and I'm not going to read everything there. And they say, we invite our users, by the way, to flag any titles they believe should be reviewed under our content guidelines. Please simply add the book to our feedback site. Well, this website, the staff writer here, did flag it, and nothing was done right away. Now, it goes on to say, a one-time Logos user whose identity we are shielding estimates he spent over $15,000 on their resources in the last decade. He has contacted the company multiple times over the last month, sounding the alarm about selling these perverse resources, but alleges no one has responded to him or bothered returning his messages. Now, here's from another article. It's titled Sexual Magic for the Solo Witch. By the way, that's a book they sell. A timeline of Logos Bible software, customer service in action, part 1. And by the way, this is it, if I'm not mistaken. Right here. Let me just pull it out and I'll just move up a little bit closer. So that's the book here. I don't know if you can see it right here for those online, but Crimson Craft, Sexual Magic for the Solo Witch, Halo Quinn. Halo Quinn. I don't know if that's an author or that's just like some stage name or something like that. By the way, here are some of the chapters. Here, I won't show it to you. I'll just read it off. It's a little bit blurry. Chapter 1, Casting the Circle. Chapter 2, The Divine Erotic. Chapter 3, Red Witchcraft. They've got part 2 here says Laying the Foundation. Chapter 4, The Craft of the Witch, and so on. You know, you see where I'm going with that. I don't have to read every one there, but you can see where it's going with that. By the way, here's some other titles, and this is on Faith Life Books, where they claim to have over 150,000 titles. Here's one. Now there's a couple I can't read, but this one, Affection, an Erotic Memoir. Here's another one, How to Write Erotica. How does that help with your theological Bible study? It doesn't. All right? And they have some I didn't even print it up because it was so graphic and disgusting. So this is what this particular article says. Yesterday we broke the news, not obviously over a year ago, that Logos Bible software and their sister site, Faith Life eBooks, were selling over 1,000 titles that contained hardcore erotica and pornography that rivaled the most sordid and smuttiest harlequins, and that they have since apologized and pledged to take it down. Some of our readers question why we did not go to the company privately with our concerns. You don't do that. No, I laud them for going publicly with that. Absolutely. You don't go privately with that at that point. This is a business. They insisted that rather than blowing them up publicly, we should have simply shared our findings with them rather than rushing in and going off half-cocked without giving them the chance to respond. Well, no, I think you should expose it and then let that give them you know what, with all the tech men they have there, they should have people on that all the time. This article exists, and who picks this? I don't know how it works, to be honest with you, who allows these things to enter into their database and that, but obviously someone's allowing it. You can't just upload a book to it. At least not that I know of. I'm not sure about Faith Life eBooks. I'm not sure how that works. And judging by this, I don't know if I want anything to do with it, to be honest with you. This article exists to peel back the layers and offer some context, background, and inside baseball, it says here. It explains why we did it and how it all started with the sexual magic of a witch, quote-unquote, book, and a complaint sent to customer service to Logos on February the 2nd, that's 2024, by the way, by one of their longtime users that we're sharing in full today. This is part one, and I will read you part two, by the way. It goes on to say here, Logos sales and customer support. Over the weekend, I sent a message to your CEO, Vic, through LinkedIn and the Logos platform, but I have not received a response. I have serious concerns about the material you are selling in your Christian bookstore, quote unquote. As I shared with Vic, I have been an enthusiastic Logos customer for several years and have spent tens of thousands of dollars on your platform. This week, while searching for additional books on the topic of the New Age movement, I was shocked to stumble on the fact that you are selling sexually explicit and how-to occult books. So he's looking for material and exposing all this stuff, and he's finding the exact opposite, promoting it, and then some. By the way, with the New Age and the occult, it's intrinsically tied to sex. Pornography and the occult are intrinsically tied together. As simple as that. You cannot divorce the two. We had a man visiting the church, right? Devil possessed. They call it schizophrenia, devil possessed. You know what? Heavily into porn. You know, I'm wondering what he was into to allow those devils into him. What drugs did he take? What literature was he reading? There's a connection there. See, my cousin Jackie, or Jacob is his full name, but Jackie, he was diagnosed at 20 years of age with schizophrenia. What happened with him was that he went to Mexico with his friends on a trip back in 1997. They went to party on one of those kind of trips, and he went and took those, I think it's peyote or mescaline or something like that, you know, from the cactus. It has a hallucinogenic effect on you. And then that was it. That did it. And they had to rush him home. And he had devils in him at that point. But the thing is, he was experimenting with the New Age and the occult before that. At 17 years of age, he was in juvenile detention because he raped a young woman at a party. You tie all of that together, there was something fundamentally, he was a problem child to begin with for years. He was not raised properly. He was left to himself, and he basically put his mother to shame, brought his mother to shame. And by the way, I don't know what's happening with him now because I've not been in contact with them for now almost 11 years. 11 years. But I know at one point he absolutely hated his father. Like he despised his dad. But anyway, that's beyond that. But I'm just trying to give you tie things in here. So continue on. It says here. So in the explicit and how-to occult books, the book that appeared, in my initial search is Crimson Craft, Sexual Magic for the Solo Witch. I looked up the table of contents and was shocked to learn that this book is about how to perform perverse sexual acts on yourself and others while using spells and witchcraft. And of course, I read you some of the chapters. I didn't go read you every chapter there. He goes on to say, why would anyone study the Bible or studying the Bible need a book explaining how to cast spells while performing kinky sex acts? I'm kind of changing the language here. It gets into, it's not bad language, but it's not something I want my children to hear. Why is Logos selling books like this? The book and others like it have no place in any library, especially a Christian library. Remember, it started off targeting pastors and basically Christians. It was initially really, they can call themselves a technology company all they want, but it was a Bible software program. Bible study software program. That's how they market themselves. Logos Bible study software. After making the horrible discovery above, I thought this is a one-off. Or I thought rather, is this a one-off or are there more books like this in your online bookstore? I was shocked at what I found. The answer is the Quinn book is not a one-off. Here are just a few of what appear to be hundreds of erotic, pornographic fiction titles currently being sold on Logos. Here's some of them. Slow Satisfaction, Slow Seduction, The Hookup Plan. I'm not reading every one of them. Taking the Lead, The Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon. I Need a Hero Box Set, a military romance collection. Here's another one. Unbuttoning the CEO. Another one. One Night with the CEO. And another, I can't read some of these here. The Seduction of Miss Amelia Bell, The Scandalous Secret of Abigail McGregor, Seduced by a Highlander, and so on and so forth. You get the picture. There's more here, but I'm not going to read every single one. These books contain pervasive, explicit sexual content, vulgar language, explicit pornographic sex scenes, BDSM, and other gross stuff. The content in these books is so perverse and vile that I dare not copy a redacted, let alone a full text citation. The content is beyond disgusting and gross. Logos, he says here, you are selling some seriously dirty filth. You claim to exist to empower believers everywhere to go deeper in the Bible through a fusion of Bible study resources and powerful technology. The books you are selling contradict your claim. Moreover, there are no explicit content warnings on your website. There are no content filters in your software products. And I have confirmed that this pornographic and occult content can be full text searched in Logos 10 Gold or higher without purchase. This poses significant risks to my children. Now I'm forced to take away access. Just think, I would allow like Jacob to do a Bible study, right? I have resources. And now, the thing is, you won't do a search of if you do a search of my library, this is not going to come up. But what if he goes and looks in the bookstore? Right? Not that he'll buy anything. And then this, you just type in something on the New Age. You do a study on the New Age like this gentleman did, and all this comes up. Think about it. Goes anyone, again, even children with access to Logos 10 Gold or higher can click on Library, click the Add to Library tab, and then search for any key term or book title listed on logos.com. It says, all the books I mentioned above can be full text searched, again, without purchase. By the way, this is why it's necessary to be a discerning people. I thank God that He revealed this to me. I really do, because I had no idea of this. I had no... Why would I expect a Bible software program to be selling books like this in their bookstore? I just wouldn't even think about that. And this pastor or general, whoever he is, I'm assuming he's a pastor, and he's got an extensive library. He wants to do some research on the New Age, so I'm going to check the Logos bookstore, see if there's anything digital there, right? And there's some good things with Logos, with the copy and paste and all that, and the citations, to make citing what you're copying and that much easier and that, and I understand all of that, but this kind of bothers me. Right? They claim now they've removed those 1,000 titles, finally. But I don't know what else is going to sneak through. By the way, I think this is the state of Christianity today. I'm just, as I'm tying it in, I'm just thinking, you read articles on these IFB pastors, they're charged with sexually abusing, like, literally 10-year-old girls. One was a 6-year-old girl, 73-year-old pastor, former pastor, and all that. And I'm thinking, you know what? It's got to be tied in with pornography. You can't divorce it. Absolutely, you can't turn a blind eye. I wonder how many are immersed in this stuff. Wow. By the way, when we're going out preaching these events, that they're going to nail us with that. I guarantee you that Dave Bailey will have about 10 articles about Baptist preachers getting charged. So I know, I've read them. Yeah. And you know what? As far as nominally speaking, I'm on your side with this, okay? All right? Now, I don't know what you're into personally. Wow. There it goes. Here's a reproduction of the issue. When I typed in the word, quote-unquote, sex in Logos, I expect to find biblical and theological treatments on the topic, right? What possible reason could Logos have for including 200 questions about sex by Cosmopolitan, or working sex workers write about a changing industry in your collection of books? Those are titles, and by the way, they have others here, and married sex, promoting adultery, right? The sex thing, reimagining conversations with young people about sex, and so on and so forth. I don't need to read all of that, but you get the point. And once the book is added to your print library, you can search for any keyword or phrase. If the term is found, Logos will return nearly a paragraph of text. Again, there are 0 parental controls. Wow. The light just came on. I have seen the light. Yeah, I'm telling you, there's something about this place that's kind of dark and dingy here. That's witchcraft. That just came out of nowhere. Oh, praise the Lord. I was wondering why that was dark. I wonder if you bang some of these lights, they'll just turn on. Anyway, I don't want to get off topic here. Again, there are 0 parental controls and what appears to be hundreds of sexually explicit books. If a determined user searches for a phrase near the end of the resultant paragraph, only 3 or 4 words are needed. He goes on to say, it appears that a user can theoretically read any searchable book in its entirety. And he goes here, here's an example of what I'm talking about. Working sex book, a search for or the amateur, quote unquote, returns the following results. So working sex, quote, book, a search for the quote unquote or the amateur returns the following result. It'll say this: pornography. This is on faith. This is Logos Bible study. In the regular world, those quotidian ad hoc images which can be utilized. Oh, wow, I can't read this. Sorry. It's so bad. I can't even read it. I'll just leave it at that. It's that bad. This is stuff that was at one time when would have been top shelf, and like back in the day, I guess when they were selling all that, the magazines, that would be like top shelf type stuff. This is on a, keep in mind, this is a Bible study platform, software platform. I can't even read this. Like he took a screenshot of what, I can't even read. That's how vile it is. It's worse than what we hear when we're preaching out in the streets. It's worse than that. I mean, I can't even read beyond that. He goes, do it again. So you do it again, and the text continues to progress. So it gives you more and more and more. This is within one of the books, right? So it gives you a preview, but the preview gives you more of a preview, and then more of a preview, and then more of a preview. I think you get the picture, he says here. This is one example. There are far more graphic titles in your collection with graphic sexual content that no one should be reading, especially Christians. He goes on to say, here are two publishers Logos is working with that have an extensive catalog of romance porn books. And there appears to be others. And of course, these publishers are for Forever and Forever Yours. Now, I'm not going to read you some of their titles. He goes on to say here, when we're at the point where we are forced to blur suggestive book covers sold by the world's leading Bible study software company website, there is something seriously wrong with Christendom. Besides the sexual content, your store contains non-theological / academic books on spell casting, spell recipes, divination, witchcraft, astrology, manifesting, tarot card reading, New Age, and occult rituals. Why does anyone need to know any of this stuff? It's one thing you have materials exposing this stuff, but why would you want to have that? Where's the market for this? Goes on to say, these are not academic or research books. So why is Logos selling this demonic material? This material is dangerous. Now, here's a few more examples of titles. The Junior Witch's Handbook, A Kid's Guide to White Magic, Spells, and Rituals. That's the title. The Junior Witch's Handbook, A Kid's Guide to White Magic, Spells, and Rituals. Next one is The Junior's Astrologer's Handbook, A Kid's Guide to Astrological Signs, the Zodiac, and more. Another title, the Junior Tarot Reader's Handbook, A Kid's Guide to Reading Cards. Another one, A Kid's Guide to the Chinese Zodiac, Animal Horoscopes, Legendary Myths, and Practical Uses for Ancient Wisdom. Wow. As I'll say here, none of this content belongs on the world's leading Bible study software. I should not have to worry about protecting my family or my brothers and sisters from Bible software. Goes on to say, you need to remove this content from your website. This is very disheartening, to say the least. Logos, this is unacceptable. Please provide a response as to when it will be taken down. Well, this is part 2. Logos Bible Software sells books on how to write erotica and be a porn star. A timeline of customer service in action, part 2. Now it goes 2 days ago, we broke the news that Logos Bible Software and their sister site, Faith Life eBooks, were selling thousands of titles that contain hardcore erotica and pornography. Again, I'm going to move on from that. Now, Logos Bible site says here, Logos Bible Software is perhaps the most prominent and popular sermon prep. Actually, I'm going to move forward here from that. Easier. So early last month, a long time, he goes on, so we got that. So on February 2nd, he messaged Vic Rajgopal. So this is a gentleman who spent a lot on the platform and was very concerned, directly via LinkedIn. On February 3rd, he messaged Vic Rajgopal via the faithlife.com messages board and received no response. After 5 days, he tried again, emailing Logos Sales and Customer Service on February the 5th, which he says, which we covered in depth here, but I'm not going to click that link, giving them a detailed list of the problem, right? Which, if you haven't read yet, read first, and then come back to, well, I'm not going to read that. We kind of did. I gave you a detailed list on that. I did give you the detailed list the first part there. So this is what he says here, his email. So he told them in part, here are just a few of what appear to be hundreds of erotic pornographic fiction titles currently being sold on Logos, and gave a list including, and I'm not going to read all of those. On February 6th, Logos customer service replied telling him, we have notified the supervisors and departments involved in removing this content. We don't have a time frame on when it will be finalized, but we did want you to know that we are working on it. On February the 7th, the next day, Logos removed about a dozen books for purchase, but a dozen is a drop in the bucket given their catalog contains thousands of these books. While some books were excised, others included in this list of offending titles were not and remain at the time of writing this. And I'm not going to, here's a few of them. That time that I got drunk and saved a demon. And again, I've read, okay, we got this, I've got that. Moving forward. Making matters more frustrating, however, is that while Logos removed a dozen titles from their outward-facing store, they were not removed from the Logos Bible Study app. All the pornographic books and others can still be accessed via the Logos Add to Library search. Right? It continues on here. The complainant told us, I asked them to fix the problem, not remove a couple of books. Having these books still accessible in the Logos Bible Study app is not fixing the problem. Following this email and their pledge to look into it, he thanked them and requested, please keep me posted. They did not keep him posted. On February the 9th, he requested a status update from the customer care agent, but no one got back to him, and no further responses were forthcoming. After being ghosted, which means they just did not reply, he checked the Logos website for the next 3 weeks. Apparently, the removal of a dozen books is as serious as the company took it, because thousands of erotic and pornographic books remained and were not removed from the front or back end, despite the company knowing about it early last month. These still available books include How to Write Erotica, an affection and erotic memoir, which has a naked woman's rear end on the front cover that we had to blur out. Think about that. Think about that. After waiting weeks and seeing no further action, he contacted us through our tip line. Right, DM, this is obviously their Twitter feed as well. And we wrote the story, bringing it all into the light and prompting the company to take a more urgent course of action. Describing the issue as a result of an automated feed from the publisher and the graphic content as not in alignment with their philosophy, Logos Bible Software announced that they were removing hundreds of erotic novels from their ebook service available through the Logos application. Sadly, for several days now, we have put in multiple requests, though multiple channels for an interview or conversation with Logos about this. Through multiple channels or for an interview or conversation with Logos about this. But so far, they have declined our request. If anyone has any contacts at Logos, he says here, who would be willing to give us further clarity, please let us know. And there's a few other titles here, and I can't even read them. That's just how bad it is. Really, I can't. Continue on here. It says, Logos Bible Software continues to sell hundreds of erotic and pornographic books on this platform, despite promising that such titles would be rare and that their filters, as well as our manual process, would prevent illicit titles from being added to our platform. Now, moving forward here. After a volley of public outcry and pressure, where the company lied, distorted, and engaged in revisionist history, Vice President of Content Products Matt Bennett shared an update on page 6 of a private message board where a couple of dozen people would read it, assuring the users that they would take care of it because we know our existing workflow failed at keeping illicit titles off the Logos platform, so we're rebuilding a process to better vet and filter the content. He provided an update a month later, sharing the great strides they have taken. This is what he says here. We have checked, tested, and verified our filters as well as our manual processes are working properly from now on to prevent illicit titles from being added to our platform. We have also completed automated and manual reviews of questionable content that's currently available on the platform, removing all the inappropriate books we found. From here on, we are confident that our processes will correctly identify and remove content that doesn't adhere to our distribution philosophy. Thank you for your patience as we have worked to fix our content filtering and review processes. While we can't guarantee another illicit title won't end up on the Logos platform, we feel certain it will be rare. Well, they should really be on that. Our team remains committed to regularly checking our filters and to reviewing and responding to each email that comes through. And there's another one here. Major progress, Logos issues new statement about the great pornographic book purge of 2024. Thank God I didn't know about any of this until after the fact, and after the fact that they've removed it. That's very concerning. I mean, it's concerning with all the modernist stuff on there, but when you got the smut on there, it's really concerning. Goes on to say here, a Logos Bible software executive has issued a new statement regarding their company's efforts to rid their sites of thousands of sexual and pornographic books that have long been embedded in their libraries, apologizing for allowing the perverse content on their platforms, while acknowledging our existing workflow failed at keeping illicit titles off the platform. So I'm going to move forward there. So they did apologize, but you know what? The only reason why they removed it is because there was an expose. There's about 10 articles exposing this stuff, plus their Twitter feeds, and they basically had to respond to the Twitter feeds. So I do laud protestia.com for wow, these titles. A night of living dangerously. The time I got drunk and yeeted a love potion at a werewolf. Yeeted. Remember when we heard that they chat, those wrestlers chanting yeet? Okay, so since it goes on here, they say, notably, this recent widespread removal came shortly after we posted the aforementioned Logos books to our Twitter feed, garnering tens of thousands of views and ultimately being shared with people at Logos, perhaps prompting renewed efforts and swift action. In any case, we are very pleased with how the site looks now and that our efforts have permanently changed the way Logos does business. While Logos remains elusive in its commentary, there remain many unanswered questions. If you work at Logos and are willing to share some insights, it goes on, / insider's perspective into this illicit book fracas, please DM us on Twitter, or that's what they say there. All right. So if Logos again eventually removed the books many weeks after the first complaint came in. The company responded on Thursday with an apology, agreeing that the materials, now going back a year, right? Actually, probably longer than that. Last year, we'll go back last year, not necessarily a year with this, that the materials had no place on the website and stated that they were now actively working to remove them. The company has not addressed why ignored customer complaints in early February, and responded after the investigation went public, according to protestia.com. So that's Logos on the pornography. Now, on transgender issues, another one. I was going to say here, Logos carries many titles in indicating their willingness to play along with those who have gender identity issues. The author of Retreating Forward, a spiritual practice with transgender persons, David Elias Weekly, is a Methodist minister. Now, David Elias Weekly is a picture of him, and he's wearing all the rainbow stuff on him and all that. What's with this? The Methodists are the worst. I think they're even worse than the United Church now, especially United Methodists. So he's a Methodist minister who transitioned from female to male in 1975 at the age of 24. He started early. Right? The ad for her book or his book or whatever's book it is, quote, transgender people are among the most marginalized and vulnerable populations in the world. Misinformation, lack of education, and lack of experience among cisgendered persons often result in forms of violence and abuse directed towards those perceived as transgender or gender nonconforming. Such violence and abuse are not restricted to secular culture, but expand into faith communities and essential forms of spiritual care and support. I'm very abusive. Amen. Continues on here. Where am I here? Oh, yeah. When transgender people of faith share the reality of their gender identity, they often experience rejection by the very communities that should provide support, encouragement, and practical ministries of hospitality. Well, the way this ministry reacts to that is get saved. First, repent and believe the gospel, because then that whole issue will be solved. Right? I'm not affirming. What they're saying is, what they're basically saying, you need to affirm, what we are and, well, what you think you are. Goes on to say here, retreating forward, a spiritual practice with transgender persons is an educational and practical resource for individuals, spiritual leaders, and faith communities seeking to provide practical and spiritual sustenance. The retreat model included in this text provided transformational for those involved. Now, another book offered by Logos is, quote, A Christian's Guide Through the Gender Revolution, Gender, Cisgender, Transgender, and Intersex by Vince E. Gill. One online reviewer said of this book, Mr. Gill's apologetic for the gender revolution might be sympathetic, but it's not biblical. I'm not sure where a Christian guide generally comes into play unless it is to be a proponent of a very progressive liberal version of generic Christianity. His basic argument hinges on the extremely rare occurrence of intersex. How many times have they brought that up to us? What about intersex people? I mean, how, come on. Okay. To the emotional gender dysphoria. He implies that these two similar issues must be both acknowledged and resolved through acceptance, understanding, and most radically, the author goes on to make the weak argument that gender conformity / reassignment surgery is a legitimate, thus biblically acceptable option. You tell me give me chapter and verse for that, by the way. Luke, can you give me chapter and verse for that? My Bible says that you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and if you're going to undergo any kind of gender reassignment surgery, then you're basically blaspheming what God has wonderfully made, fearfully and wonderfully made. Wow. So closing, Faith Life Corporation is a highly profitable business, and I think that's why this stuff was kept on there. Someone's buying it. Someone's paying them money for it. They sell materials from traditional Christian authors, and they also sell materials that call the Bible a fraud. Why would you say? Well, I know why, because it's about the money, right? The love of money is the root of all evil. As simple as that. By the way, this is why these Christian bookstores like Mitchell's and all that, they all went under, right? They start selling Roman Catholic material and all that because they want to broaden their base. And you know what? They went under. Right? They are playing both sides of the issue in the name of profit. Nothing is off limits at Logos, not even the musings of the Pope and the promotion of the worship of Mary. One of the chief complaints about Logos software is the cost. Packages can cost thousands of dollars. The software itself is expensive. Also, the resources are costly. It is almost always cheaper to buy a used commentary from the internet than to buy the same commentary in Logos. Online reviewer, please keep in mind, he says here, that there are extreme spiritual dangers when mixing money with spiritual matters. It's very clear, yes. A laborer is worthy of his hire, and it costs money to carry on the work of God, but profiting from wicked activities in the name of God is dangerous work. We must remember that Gehazi was cursed with leprosy for trying to profit from that which Elisha had rejected. Let's turn there. We'll close with that. 2 Kings chapter 5. We must remember that Gehazi was cursed with leprosy for trying to profit from that which Elisha had rejected. Second Kings. We're going to start in verse 15. I'll give you some time. We're going to close with that. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 15. And he returned to the man of God. This is Naaman, and Naaman basically returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him and said, Behold, Now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. But he said, as the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. Verse 20. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, behold, my master hath spurred Naaman the Syrian, in not receiving at his hands that which he bought. But as the Lord liveth, I will run after him, and take somewhat of him. So Gehazi followed after Naaman. And when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him, and said, is all well? And he said, all is well. My master hath sent me, saying, behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. And Naaman said, be content, take 2 talents. And he urged them, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand, and bestowed them in the house, and let the men go, and they departed. But he went in, and stood before his master. And Elisha said unto him, whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, thy servant went no whither. Basically, thy servant went nowhere. He did. Went somewhere. And he said unto him, went not mine heart with thee, when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money, and to receive garments, and olive yards, and vineyards, and sheep, and oxen, and men servants, and maidservants? The leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence, a leper as white as snow. Wow. Heavenly Father, give thee thanks, Lord, for this message, Lord, and Lord, really these articles contained in with this expose of the Logos, Lord, and Lord, it just really reiterates just how much of a discerning people we must be, Lord, and this is something that went under my radar, and I found out later, Lord, and in a way I'm thankful for that. I was not subjected to that, Lord. I'm thankful, and I pray, Lord, help us to be a discerning people, Lord, even when it comes to Bible software platforms, Lord, and whether it be looking up things on the internet and watching things online, Lord, it just reiterates the fact that we need to be a discerning people. Therefore, really, and to be a discerning people, Lord, we need to know the Word. We need to know thy Word, Lord, and know it inside out and seek to know it inside out. And I pray, Lord, this would be the case in this church. In Jesus' precious and holy name I pray. Amen. Amen.